And we're back with more News Talk Saga 960. Mark Petrone with you. So very glad you could join us on this edition of the Mark Petrone Show. Well, he is one of the most, I want to say, controversial, funny men, comedians. Ricky Gervais, of course, causing quite the storm at the Oscars a few years ago with his speech. I thought it was hilarious. And now he's at it again with a Netflix show that has triggered some people, especially in the trans community, who don't like that type of humor. We saw the same type of thing happening with the Dave Chapelle special with Netflix. I don't know what's happening with Netflix all of a sudden. They're definitely trying to move away from the woke content. We know, of course, they recently fired about 150 people from Netflix. Their stock recently got absolutely shredded. It's cut by more than half. So the value of the company has suffered mightily over the last few years, and they've tried to move away from more of the woke content and trying to, well, get back to what they were doing before, which is trying to just entertain as many people as possible, make as much money as possible. And so they've gotten rid of some of the people that maybe made the network a little too preachy for some. And so now we have a special after they basically got in trouble by some over the Dave Chapelle show, the special rather, in which Chapelle made fun of the so-called alphabet people. And now Ricky Gervais is doing it with his new special. So who better to talk about this issue than Daniel Boardman, who is actually a former funny man himself. I mean, I think he's still pretty funny. He has taken the stage in the past as a comedian. And so
now I'm the resident expert on transphobic comedy. So yeah. There you go.
And you also work for the National Telegraph, of course.
That I do.
Talk a little bit about what your thoughts are about this as I fix my problem with my camera.
Yeah, I mean, it's so par for the course. The jokes are utterly benign. The Vanity Fair article your Variety article, I don't think it's Vanity Fair, it's Variety. Yeah, it's a Variety article that talks about it. It's basically, it's your standard trash journalism, heavy quotation marks around the journalism by William Earle here. He draws criticism and he finds like a set of 7 nobodies on Twitter who are very enraged and then makes a story of it. One of the guys actually quoted has his name on Twitter. Elon Musk is a C word and he doesn't use C word. So this is the great expert. Only one of the people quoted in the article, I guess uses their actual name. I guess Dr. Amy Roberts, and I assume that doctor is in sociology from Gender Studies University. But Unicorns Rock trans with a trans flag in their profile isn't very happy about this. Neither is like Elon Musk is a C word, and nor is Big Red, whose Twitter handle is Big Red Gamer. So like gay, GAYMER. So, these people are very unhappy. It's people who won't use their real name, don't have the real profile picture, and are very mad at Elon Musk's existence. Well, they think this is transphobia. And I see you have the clip pulled up here, but you'll see it's the most benign things ever. It's like, yeah, I like old women with uteruses, not these new women with, male genitalia.
All right, let's listen to this segment. This is the one that's kind of triggering some people. And this is him talking about, I guess, new women versus old women. There is some language in this. It's not going on the radio, but online, well, things are a little different. Let's listen.
The old-fashioned women. Oh, God. The ones with wombs. Oh. Those fucking dinosaurs. Oh. No, I love the new women. I know the new women. They're great, aren't they? The new ones we've been seeing lately. The ones with beards and cocks. They're as good as gold. I love them. No, it's the old-fashioned. And now the old-fashioned, they're like, oh, they want to use our toilets. Why shouldn't they use your toilets? For ladies. They are ladies. Look at their pronouns. What about this person that isn't a lady? Well, his penis. Her penis, you fucking bigot. What if he rapes me? What if she rapes you? You fucking turf whore.
That accurately sums up the online Twitter discourse around transgenderism Pretty
All
wild.
right. Well, I mean, to nobody's surprise, he's getting a blast from a lot of the media, the liberal media. The press is like Variety, Independent, People. Let's have a look at some of the headlines because this is something. Okay, this is in People magazine, and let's see. Let's share that. Where are you? I'll have that in a minute. But
The headline in Variety, I think I have it here. Ricky Gervais's Netflix special draws criticism for graphic jokes mocking trans people.
exactly, yeah,
That's that's the nonsense here, and it's all built on this sort of. I mean, this is the sort of the I guess the derangement factor and the deranging thing about the whole conversation is you try and have a conversation of this, and they're holding a gun to your head, basically saying any criticism or anything that deviates from the narrative is murder because of the trans suicide rate, and you're advocating for murder through suicide. Is like you're making jokes, and these jokes will kill billions. And also, there's the other thing of transphobic violence is on the all-time high. You're inspiring hate crime. So either you are bullying people into suicide, or you are making jokes that will inspire others to do murder. Now, none of all the numbers do not bear any of these arguments out. For example, I think it's a YouTuber called Actual Justice Warrior. I think he did a thing breaking down the sort of the epidemic of murders against Black trans women when that was claimed. And if you're transgender, you actually are less likely to experience violent crime than the general population. It's a lot of phony statistics have been put out there. So, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised that a lot of this radical rhetoric is based off ascientific reasoning, but it is sort of how the conversation is being had is, well, okay, yes, free speech is good, but your free speech when you talk about trans people is literally murder or second degree murder or advocating for murder or some sort of manslaughter, and then we get this ridiculous headline you're pointing out: Netflix carving out little niche home for transphobic comedy. You're like, this
yeah,
is
yeah. The new special is called Supernatures. Unsurprisingly, includes anti-trans vitriol. Netflix has reaffirmed its commitment to transphobic comedy with Ricky Gervais's latest special, Supernature. The streamer faced criticisms. Well, this is going to mean that he's going to make all sorts of money. This is going to be a hugely popular special. The streamer faces criticism after standing behind Dave Chapelle's controversial act. Okay, and now Gervais, as he is wont to do, took things even further with possibly even more virulent transphobic jokes. And then they offer a sample, which basically is the clip that you just heard. So, first of all, what do you think of what is going on at Netflix now? I mean, are they just tired of losing money?
I think so. I think there's a lot of that now. Like there's an argument to be made. I heard people say like they actually brought in record profits this year. Well, that's solely because they upped the price of subscription. So they lost subscribers, and a lot of that they do say because they did lose all their Russian subscribers when they canceled their Russia subscription. So their subscriber counts did go down, and so I get that hurt their growth projections, has made their stock tank. But also they are losing. Like it as the last time we were on, we were talking. It was Twitter, but even these woke employees will admit that they're not in it to make money. They believe in the cause over money, and you can't have a business that functions long term that doesn't care about its bottom line. And I think there's writing on the wall that if you keep going down, and also the woke content you see on Netflix is no good. It's hilarious to watch. Like if you watch the Colin Kaepernick show and you can just turn your brain off and be like, okay, I'm not going to absorb any of this propaganda, but I'm just going to watch it as like a, sort of a view into the other side. It's pretty funny, but it's not like it doesn't get the point across it's trying to get across. And a lot of people aren't me who can just like, okay, I'm going to watch the Colin Kaepernick thing because it's so stupid that I can laugh at it. A lot of people are going to be like, why are we comparing the NFL to slavery? I like the NFL. It's clearly not slavery. And why is this person calling everything racist? Right. So a lot of people don't like that when you say like, no, your country is bad and you're a bad person. A lot of people don't like this messaging. So yeah, you see Netflix has issued a sort of ultimatum that I think they realize that even if woke stuff isn't totally hurting their bottom line right now, the perception is, I think there's sort of they flip the switch and they kind of realize, okay, you can't have people inside your company who every time they hear something they don't like, they're going to stage walkouts and protests and just harm the company. This is why there's like non-disclosure clauses. This is why there's every other company's had a thing. Like if you publicly criticize the company, this is grounds for termination. It has been for years. It's anything like, if you went on a rant about Saga 960 tomorrow, and Saga 960 is a satanic organization and they're evil and blah, 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 and the CEO is this and the listeners are bad and the other radio hosts are bad because X, Y, and Z, well, you wouldn't have a job there anymore. And everyone would be like, oh, why isn't he at Saga 960 anymore? Well, Mark went on Saga 960 and did this long extended rant about how evil it is. And everybody like, okay, that makes sense. Right? Except in the Netflix case and the Disney case where like it's some sort of value to just publicly bash the company. And I think people finally realized, you know what? We just can't have these people because they're toxic. They don't care about making money. They probably don't care about doing their work. They probably care more about pushing out a message and, just get rid of them. And, there's a lot of streaming services that need to learn this lesson. I mean, Disney Plus, I don't subscribe to it, but it's just turning out woke nonsense after woke nonsense. And you can see it in the trends, especially like you're losing hardcore fans to your properties. Like when hardcore comic book fans and hardcore Star Wars fans and hardcore Star Trek fans are walking away from their properties that they've loved for decades and supported when there's no content coming out, like you have major problems. And I think Netflix has started to learn this lesson and turned it around. I've watched some new Netflix things recently, and it's less woke. And there's a scene in The Lincoln Lawyer where they actively criticize the irrationality of a woke mob. And I was like, okay, it looks like, they're learning a lesson here, and I'm glad.
But that's what it takes, though, isn't it? It takes losing millions and millions of dollars and having shareholders say, hey, what are you guys doing? So here's another story, though. GLAAD, okay, this is the gay advocacy group, slams Ricky Gervais' Supernature Netflix special, dangerous, anti-trans rants masquerading as jokes. GLAAD has issued a statement in response to Ricky Gervais's Netflix special. We watched the Ricky Gervais comedy special on Netflix, so you don't have to. It's full of graphic, dangerous, anti-trans rants masquerading as jokes. He also spouts anti-gay rhetoric and spreads inaccurate information about HIV, the organization tweeted. Is this going to discourage anybody from tuning in?
No, because I think like everyone who's a radical leftist already hates Ricky Gervais. You referenced his epic rant at the Golden Globes a few years ago when he basically.
Right, I said Oscars. I meant was it the Oscars or was it?
It was the Golden Globes. I don't think they'd let him touch the Oscars. He was the one where he made the epic speech. I remember where he called them out for Epstein Island and all that stuff, and told him to just shut up.
The sex pests. Yeah, I remember that.
I think that was the Golden Globes.
Okay, Golden Globes. My mistake.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me.
Right. So this is exactly what I said at the beginning. Is their argument is, well, we can't really go into the content of what he said or argue. So we're just going to claim it's dangerous. Like we're going to claim that this is tantamount to murder or incitement to violence. These aren't jokes. This is just his latent trans hatred that he's filled up with. But I think you point out this is just going to make this the second most popular Netflix special in the last few years, behind the Chapelle one. I have a friend who just put out a comedy special this year, quite famous. He's down in the States, Ryan Long. He put it out on YouTube, but his special correctly identifies, like he has a line where he's like, now I have to talk about the trans people because that's the only way your special is going to get noticed. So he did some trans stuff just so people would complain about it and call it transphobic and have them write all these articles so more people would watch it. So yeah, there's a little bit of that too. And, maybe the Netflix memo is like, we know this Ricky Gervais, like we know we have a Ricky Gervais special coming out. We know he mentions trans people. So let's try and weed out some of the crazies beforehand. And then, basically, if you don't like the Ricky Gervais thing, it's basically a warning shot that, hey, you do what you did for Chapelle and you organize a thingamajig, you're not keeping your job this time. Like this time, we made a mistake last time. If it's going to happen again, it's going to be the last time it happens. Like you walk out of the job on Wednesday, you're gone. Like, I think that's kind of the message they wanted to send. So maybe that Netflix, speech last week of like, okay, guys, time to shut it down and get back to work. I think it was a lot to do with, okay, we realized we got a Ricky Gervais special coming out. He makes a very mild joke about transgender people I think twice there's something at the end of the special. I think they were talking about. It was so benign I can't even remember what it was. But basically, we have some benign, mildly spicy jokes about trans people coming out. So if you can't handle it, you're not going to work here. And let's weed them out.
Yeah, it is interesting that that Netflix went as far as it did in terms of telling its more woke members of their staff to back the hell off. They actually went out and said, look, if you really feel that strongly about these attitudes that, certain content is just too insensitive, then maybe Netflix is not the place for you to work. Daniel Boardman joining us on Saga 960. He is a contributor to the National Telegraph, a writer, a journalist. He's also a former comedian. How important is this for, say, a comedian when you see a guy doing the kind of work that Gervais is doing, the kind of work that Dave Chapelle is doing, obviously taking risks, knowing full well that there could be massive backlash? What goes through the mind of the artist, of the comedian? Is this like, well, this is what I do, and if I can't do it on my terms, then there's no point in getting on stage and producing work because of the restrictions around this whole woke culture that we live in?
So I'll give you the former comedian answer, and it's for Gervais and Chappelle to do it. It's good, right? It's good when they stand for free speech. Now there is a bit of a difference here. Is it's one thing for the guys on top to do it, like the guys who are already established, who can really kind of get away with anything, who have their millions to sort of take stands. It's good, right? It's bad when they kick the ladder out from under them. That's the worst. The real important thing is like, when do the local comedians and the local producers and when do they start to sort of, like, the real important thing for the future of stand-up comedy and free speech and the arts is actually the people sort of in the middle, on the up and coming, who aren't quite established yet, because you still, like, it's great for Gervais, it's great for Chappelle, but the problem is, do we live in a society where you can't make progress? Is someone on the precipice of breaking out? Like, you have this super funny up and coming comic who isn't, conservative, isn't liberal, but kind of in the middle, not very woke. Can they break through just being themselves, or will the industry try and keep them down out of fears of being called transphobic? Because it's one thing to defend Dave Chapelle, who you've invested tens of millions of dollars into. It's another thing to, defend Ricky Gervais, who has a track record of profitable, proven commodities in all the shows he's done. It's sort of another thing is like, when will these companies defend the rights of the non-famous artists to say what they want to do? And that's really like when we win, like when free speech wins, is when you get to that stage, when it's all across the board. So it is good that the people on top are doing it. It's important that they don't kick the ladder out from under them to the ones which they climbed up. But the real when we start seeing progress is when they defend the academic, the free speech of the guys you haven't quite heard of, who maybe don't sell out theaters, but they can sell out a club. When they defend those guys and say, listen, we're for free speech, we're for artistic expression. We have Hannah Gadsby, we have Dave Chapelle, we have all these different types of views. We're not the arbiters of what's good and bad, for the most part. That's when you really see like the battle's been won. So it's good.
All right, so there's a double standard here, if I understand you, between a guy like Gervais who can call his own shots. Everybody knows that he's going to make all sorts of money, that his special is going to be popular. But if a not well-known artist was to go on a limb like this, it wouldn't fly. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, I'm not so entrenched in the industry. Like when I left the industry, it was like, well, I mean, you'd have a fatwa put against you if you said any of this, and blah blah blah. I do hope it's better these days. I mean, is that? But yeah, there always is a sort of a double standard in the entertainment industry for established people versus those trying to break through. So the real because right now, like, the industry will die if they don't sort of take the old approach of let the funniest people rise to the top. Because right now, especially in Canada, to get on the Winnipeg Comedy Festival, Halifax Comedy Special, a CBC special, like, you would have to be insanely funny as just like a white man. Even if you were liberal, left leaning, like, they don't want to give a new white man a comedy special. So like right now you do need these intersectional characteristics, and you probably need to not contradict the narrative is sort of how you need to break through, especially in Canada, for the mainstream stuff. Now
All right.
there are comedians.
Let's look at this comment here about Canadian women's sex-based rights. Amid scores of fans and right-wingers taking to Twitter to defend Gervais, this all gender-critical women vote one way trope needs to stop. Women are working together across the aisle like no other movement in history. That's why they're so scared. I'm not sure I quite get. Well, yeah, I get that because, okay, so that's the other side, which is saying, yeah, this isn't just, dudes that are straight men that are in favor of this stuff. This is a group of women that's saying, well, wait, we don't like what's going on, and we actually like this content.
Yeah, and it's more than that. So I've talked to some of the people from
I've
Canadian
spoken to them as well.
Rights.
Yeah,
but the point they're trying to make, if I understand them correctly, is that not all their women are right wing. So yes, in the sort of TERF community, are there some people who would listen to the show or listen to my show and be like, yeah, I love Daniel's rant about the windmills and the carbon tax and whatever. Yes, but there's also socialists in their ranks. There's classically liberal, right? There's liberal vote, like they don't vote liberal anymore, but people would vote liberal. People used to vote NDP. People vote conservative. Some PPC supporters, some Green Party people, some apolitical people. So the gender critical women's movement is made up of all different people, and I don't think they like the sort of anyone who disagrees with the narrative is right wing narrative. So I think that's what they're trying to point out, is that women from their organization come from all across the political spectrum who are just fed up with this, anti-woman nonsense that is being pushed under the guise of trans rights.
All right. What kind of backlash is Netflix going to get? I mean, are they going to get a slew of woke types saying, I'm out of here, Netflix, I'm not going to subscribe to your service anymore? Or is it going to have the opposite effect where people are saying, hey, Netflix is producing edgy, unwoke stuff, I'm back in?
I think the woke have very little follow through. I think someone needs to sort of do some high level corporate analytics on the woke mob and kind of put out to all the executives and CEOs that we've done the math, and I'm just doing the math of Daniel's opinion, but essentially what you are risking with Ricky Gervais here is about a 48-hour Twitter storm where nothing really happens, where there's a Twitter storm for 48 hours. And if you just kind of ride through it, they write the articles, and within 72 hours, this is all over. They're onto something new. Donald Trump has retruced something on his new thing about whatever. And, the news cycle moves on, something, Ukraine, monkeypox, whatever. That's, I think, what the consequences are. And the only consequences of the woke mob are those that could be self-inflicted. So, yeah, will some woke people unsubscribe? Sure. But you correctly hit on it that you would get maybe more or maybe an equal amount or another amount that say, well, I was unsubscribing before because Netflix went so overly woke political. Okay, I'll come back because it's I said I'd come back when they cut this nonsense out, and they're cutting the nonsense out. So I don't think that they'll be sort of overly harmed by subscriber loss here. Potentially they might gain some. But I think the real test is, does Netflix have the ability to just keep calm and say nothing for 72 hours and just let this blow over?
Is this a big neon sign message to people who have given up on Netflix? And there are millions of them who say, enough already. And they can tell how many people are watching, even subscribers. Like, for instance, I'm back on Netflix just because I need content and whatever. And I don't spend a whole lot of time, but I'll watch a show, and then I'll get an email saying, hey, you haven't finished watching this show. So they know that their shows are not being watched, right? They know that people are watching for 5 minutes and then thinking, I'm out of here, this sucks. And so when they see everybody do that, when they see literally tens of thousands of people tune into this crap, they got these cartoons for kids, anti-racist baby. Have you heard of this?
Yeah,
so
that's Ibrahim X. Kennedy.
So that's canceled. So they're phasing out content because
they also canceled the Meghan Markle produced series,
which was terrible. So they know that people are not watching this crap. And the idea that they're going to force feed woke crap on people and they're going to eat it, it's like, here's a plate full of dog poo. Pretend that it's a tasty sirloin steak and eat it. And people are not going to pretend. They're going to say, this is garbage. I'm not going to eat it. Get it away from me. So when you're looking at your algorithm and you're thinking, all these people are not watching the shows that we have. So yeah, they're subscribers today, but eventually, once they have to tighten their belts, they're going to bail out. They're not going to subscribe anymore, and we're going to be out all sorts of money. We have to produce content that people want. And so I think they finally hit a wall when the stock price was absolutely shredded, like cut by more than half. Netflix has lost tremendous amount of capitalization. The value as a company has been more than halved, cut by half. And so they've reached a point where it's like, okay, we've got to do something here. And obviously what we're doing with this woke crap isn't working. We got to cut bait. We got to cut our losses on some of these shows like this Meghan Markle drivel and start producing edgy, interesting content, and to hell with these woke morons who don't like it. Is that what's happened here?
I think so, because Netflix has been historically cagey on their releasing of the watch analytics, but you're right that they have them. And it's always been my hypothesis that the people who complain about art and media often aren't the people watching it. They just sort of read this article or often don't read the article, see the headline on Variety or one of the ones you brought up, and, oh, Netflix being transphobic. Well, I'll show my allyship and tweet, I'm not going to watch this. And then Netflix confuses Twitter for real life, and there you go. But what they've ended up doing is, by catering to the Twitter mob, they've been alienating their consumer and the people who actually watch it. And I think they've got burned, and they realized, okay, we have to reverse course. And with the competition out there, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Disney Plus, and everyone's sort of lemmings off the cliff of woke nonsense, and people are bailing out, and you've got the Daily Wire stepping into the space. It's like, okay, we'll fulfill the other half of the country's desires. I think they've kind of realized, okay, time to cut bait on this, and we need to make content that the consumer likes. And that doesn't mean you have to do Bible themed cartoons that, really get, the message of Christ out there and promote heterosexuality. Like, you don't need to do that.
They do have some of this funding, these shows that were funded by, like, crowdfunded, a movie about Jesus that they had produced just from crowdfunding. And my understanding is that a lot of that content is quite popular.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, so I'm not, and that's good to have on there. Like, I'm not going to watch the, hyper religious movie, but, people of that religion will, and that's all fine. But my point is simply, you don't need that. You just need to make content that people like and doesn't alienate anyone. Because, like, you shouldn't make racist content against Black people, because that's not good business, because you want Black people to watch it. You shouldn't make content that's anti-white, because then lots of white people won't want it. I know, like, it's weird. Anti-white racism's weird because, like, the people who really love it are white people, and I don't really think many Black people care about, like, the anti-white stuff. I think it's
There is a lot of anti-white. Like, if you could watch a show now, and you can guarantee that the villain, I mean, if there is a villain, a murderer, a bad person, it'll be a white guy. And the victims will be, an ethnic minority victimized by the bad white dude who's also a Republican.
Yeah, and then it gets more. It's like, it depends on the type of movie. And like when Hollywood does like an all-female reboot of some other franchise, you can tell, like, okay, all the guys,
Ocean's 8, right?
All the guys are bad, all the women are good. Like, yeah, that's bad storytelling, right? You don't want to, like, and in, let's say, in the 1980s, when all the bad guys are ethnic minorities and all the white guys are good. Let's just say that. Well, that's bad storytelling. Like, you don't want to be able to look at someone and be like, oh, he's speaking in a Russian accent. Okay, he's going to be the bad guy, right? Especially now, this time we live in, where we've, everyone's consumed a lot of media in their life. We have it at our fingertips. People want complicated stories with interesting characters. And I don't want to look at a Netflix show and be like, okay, Black female bartender, like, she's going to have a Saw backstory and no flaws, right? You don't want to do that. Oh, the white boss is coming in. He's going to be the bad guy. you want both these characters to have some flaws and some, but also some value. And like, yeah, if one of them's a bad guy, but you can kind of humanly see how they're going about it. And no one's perfect. Like, this is the interesting stuff. Like, people are interested in other people, and a lot of the times the characters put forward by Hollywood aren't real people. Especially when it follows intersectional nonsense. You just sort of look at their stats and you can tell, okay, how the writers are going to write them. But you want good content, and you want content that doesn't immediately alienate someone. Or most people. Like, okay, yes, the ultra fringe. Like, if the Ku Klux Klan doesn't like your show, that's not what I'm talking about, okay? Right? You can have a show where the Ku Klux Klan is the bad guy.
I'd be worried if they did like it. But okay, so is Hollywood in general going to get the message? Is Hollywood looking at what Netflix is doing and go, you know what? We have to start following suit. For instance, now they've got, a woke Hulk movies coming out, right? So it's like,
yeah, I saw the thing for that. So it's like She-Hulk. That's She-Hulk. The most craziest trailer. Now I do know that She-Hulk has been a character in the comics for decades.
Oh, okay.
So I did look it up. So it's not like they just invented.
All right.
So it's not like Disney was just like, let's make the Hulk a woman. This is a character. Okay. But the trailer in itself is exactly what you're talking about. It's like, women are great. I'm a character. Like the trailer's like terrible exposition. It's like, I'm a lawyer with a demanding job and great friends, and like superheroes are that. It's like this thing. It's like, well, the trailer in itself is an attack on comic book readers and the concept of a hero. Like, those are the people you need. If you're gonna make your entire brand Star Wars and Marvel like Disney has, you can't attack comic book readers as evil, racist, male supremacists who have nothing better to do, because comic book nerds are a big community, and if you're going to make your business comic books, you need them. Same thing with Star Wars. Like, if you just start saying, well, all the canon for Star Wars is going to be thrown out because, you know what, we have better canon now, which is this Rey Skywalker stuff, and she's the greatest because, and, canon's bad. Like, nerds don't like that. So you can't have this. It's not a sustainable long-term goal thing. And will Hollywood get it? Eventually. They haven't got it now, but I think Hollywood may be 2 to 3 years away from understanding this. So I do know the person who wrote She-Hulk, I looked into this because I saw the trailer, and this stuff does fascinate me. But I think the woman who wrote it, she's never written TV series before, and she wrote a book on like the non-white males guide to like white male writers. So she has some like white men are bad and like all art is made for white men, like that type of social justice nonsense. That's her writing credit. She's never written for TV, but she has written a book on why white male TV writers are bad. So this got her a job at Disney. So this is why the Disney shows, I haven't even watched these.
So if this is a huge bust, it'll send another message to Hollywood. Maybe they have to, because the last Wonder Woman, my understanding was a bust, like the 1984 one.
It was yeah.
I'm hearing that a lot of these woke reboots, Ocean's 8, major disaster, Ghostbusters, the Ghostbusters
was
huge bust. These movies are losing millions of dollars, so, and nobody wants to see them. And if they're trying to pawn them off on China, they're going, hey, you know what? Crap is crap. Don't try to pawn this stuff.
The other thing is, when they try and pawn it off in China, if you have a gay kiss, you can't show that in China. Like, China won't like. I say it's not. You don't actually have a gay character in your Marvel show unless it's in China. Like, I don't count it. If you have two men kiss on screen, if that gets edited out of the Chinese version, well, then you didn't really have it. I judge how woke a movie is by what they release to China. So that's what I give credits to. So yeah, Captain America can kiss Thor in this next movie, but if the Chinese don't see it, then it didn't really happen.
Daniel Boardman, thanks for coming on this segment. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Daniel Boardman, who writes for the National Telegraph, so you can see and read his stories on that publication. I got to say goodbye. Thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of the Mark Petrone Show. Appreciate it. Let's do it again soon, shall we? Take care. Be strong. Bye-bye for now.